Hello and welcome to another edition of the Empathic Designer podcast. I'm your host Vaidishwaran. With webinars and virtual instructor-led trainings becoming our main source of learning, as L&D professionals, it is really important for us to remember to make our programs accessible for people with disabilities. In today's episode, let's look at how to create webinars and virtual instructor-led trainings that are accessible for audience members with disabilities. First off, make sure that you're aware of your audience's disabilities. This is very critical and will have a bearing on the design, development, and delivery strategies of your session. Some of the most common disabilities that we encounter are visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical disabilities, and literacy difficulties. We need to keep their requirements in mind and at the same time make it a comfortable experience for other members of our audience as well. I would recommend announcing upfront to the audience that the session is going to be accessible in nature. This will help set expectations for everyone in the audience. Once your content is ready, one of the first things that you usually do ahead of your session is to create your slide deck. When you do this, it is important to ensure that you think about accessibility right from the start. You can do this by including explanation for each of your slides under the notes section. Once your slide deck is done, this will enable you to create a document known as the accessibility document. This document will feature content from your slides along with detailed explanation of that content, the images, and the transcript. An accessibility document is a screen reader friendly document and will help attendees to follow your sessions much better. A good accessibility document consists of proper heading styles, lists, alternate text to images, provide meaningful and contextual explanation to hyperlinks, avoid references to colors as much as possible for the benefit of colorblind members of your audience, provide sufficient contrast between the text and the background, and a judicious use of tables by making them simple and by providing sufficient information of the column headings. A good practice is to email this document to your attendees ahead of the session to make sure that they are aware of what the content is. Now let's look at some of the common elements in our presentation and see how we can make these elements accessible. Number one, images. Oftentimes we include images with embedded text and graphs with a lot of data in our presentations. Screen readers cannot pick this information, and in such situations, ensure that you provide detailed explanations for the images and the data in those graphs in your accessibility document. Number two, videos. When we include videos as part of a presentation, make sure that they are supported with adequate prompts and descriptions. A great way of making your videos accessible is by adding closed captions. Number three, screen text. Apart from being a good design principle, using sans serif fonts on on-screen text is much more easier to read for members who have dyslexia who are attending your session. And number four is activities. While it is important to ensure that activities are accessible, it is also equally important to ensure that your entire audience is engaged. If you are presenting to a familiar audience, make sure that you have a conversation with those attendees with disabilities to understand their preference and weave them seamlessly into your experience. For example, if you have an activity where you're going to encourage learners to respond via audio, you can also provide the option for responding over a chat window. It is a good practice to dedicate a moderator to keep in a constant touch with disabled members of your audience and attend to their requirements throughout the session. While designing group activities, make sure that the entire audience is sensitized to the accessible nature of the session and have moderators assigned to help the disabled learners follow and share their opinions during group activities such as breakout sessions, gender reflective activities, and so on. It is a good practice for facilitators to summarize key points that were discussed during the activity along with the debriefing and have the moderator post these notes in the chat window. Ensure that you pilot your session along with your moderator to ensure that your session works to plan and helps you iron out some of those creases. A lot of online platforms come with live closed captioning, which enables the platform to add closed captions to the facilitators as they speak. If your platform doesn't have this, make sure that you have transcripts ready and ensure that your webcam is turned on with your face well lit to help your audience do lip reading. when you speak to them. Once the virtual session is over, it is a good practice to share a copy of the text and recording of your session with closed captioning. This helps audience members who might find it difficult to follow the presenter and the conversation during the live session. Giving a clear outline and instruction on how the facilitator can be reached with any questions post the session is a great way of making your session inclusive. Thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of the Empathic Designer podcast. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the bell icon for getting those regular updates from my channel. And as always, if you have any questions or any comments, go ahead and post them in the comment section below, and I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. Thank you and have a wonderful day.